What's up, guys? Thanks for joining me. I'm Dr. Nick Hattinger with Streamline Performance Physical Therapy. Today we're talking about kind of basics of day-to-day dryland programming. Basically, at the end of the day, this should look like any other type of strength and conditioning programming. It's just suited better for swimmers, okay? So, and when we think about swimmers, we think typically we're busting our tail in the water, right? There's a lot of overuse and kind of high rep stuff already being done. So in general, we want to keep things fairly tame, and we don't want to really push much to failure in a dryland program on a day-to-day basis. There's a time and a place for that, but just talking the basics here today. To start any dryland program, I like to start with a dynamic warm-up. Get the blood moving, get muscles kind of loosened up. This is a lot better to do a dynamic warm-up prior to your workout than a static stretch. Static stretching is not evil, though. It does serve a purpose post-workout to help muscles kind of reflexively relax a little bit more. So I would certainly not totally exclude static stretching from training at all, but it's better to do a dynamic warm-up prior to. Getting into kind of the meat and potatoes of it, your next step should be movement prep. And what we mean by this is really think about this. What are you training today? So are you trying to work on explosive jumping? Is that a priority in the training that you're trying to do? Are you doing more kind of pull-based work, or are you doing more pressing-based work? Whatever you're doing that day that you're prioritizing, you should be picking 2 or 3 different muscle activation drills that kind of help to work those movements in a little bit better way. So what I mean by that is, if you're doing a lot of squatting in a day, maybe we want to hit some hip external rotators and hip abductors to help create a little bit more muscle activation around that hip and produce a little bit more force in the squat. Same thing with any pressing or pulling movements. Little shoulder rotator cuff activation drills are great for that. Creating a little bit more of a stable environment and really getting those movement patterns and muscle coordination patterns down to allow the athlete to be a little bit more successful and honestly safe when they're doing kind of your main workout. Neural priming is really important. That's kind of think of this as a little bit more of an explosive thing that you would do prior to your main kind of loading set. So a couple different things, something short, fast, whether that's skipping or jumping. Light intro to plyometrics is great in this kind of realm as well. If you're doing single leg work with single leg squats or anything like that, definitely doing some single leg hops or single leg skips, all that kind of stuff. Whatever you're loading that day should be reflected in the neural priming. Just getting your nervous system kind of turned on and kind of turning on that fast twitch component of training, just to stimulate the athlete and get them ready to go. The main piece here with the loading progressions, how I recommend doing it is typically with an upper body push, lower body pull for one day. Another day of the week would be an upper body pull and a lower body push. This is just how I like to do it. I think that from a rest and recovery standpoint, athletes respond really well to this because you can still hit multiple things. It's not like you're just doing a bunch of shoulder work in a day. You're hitting full body, but it's allowing the athlete to kind of recover a little bit in between those different dryland sessions. Typically speaking, we don't like to do dryland more than 2 or 3 times a week, so this is a pretty good setup for that. Big thing to think about when you are loading an athlete, especially if you don't have equipment. A lot of people like to be anterior chain dominant, which swimming is anterior chain dominant, so we do want to be strong in those movements with their quads, pecs, shoulders, and things like that. But really, posterior chain is where it's at. Every swimmer is going to have weak glutes, weak hamstrings. Those are huge for starts, turns, underwaters. And then posterior chain shoulder musculature is really how you create a healthy athlete, right? So we want to make sure that we're keeping up with the integrity of shoulder health by working posterior chain. So do not neglect posterior chain exercises. And a lot of that stuff doesn't require a ton of equipment, it just requires you putting it in the programming. Last but not least, maybe most importantly, core work. So I save core work for the end of a program because a lot of what we want to do in this phase requires a good amount of core strength. So if we totally gas an athlete before or during their workout in their core loading, the quality of this is not going to be there because they just don't have the inherent stability during a movement like a squat, or even pull-ups are really heavy core or pushing exercises. When you do core loading, think of it in 3 planes. And what I mean by that is we have three planes of movement in general, right? We've got sagittal, which is front and back, frontal plane, which is side to side, and then we have your transverse plane or rotational plane. So when we load an athlete and try to really focus on core stability, all of those planes come into, they're all very important for a swimmer. So, front and back sagittal plane motion, that can be something as easy as a plank, but I would encourage you guys to make planks as dynamic as possible so that you're really challenging the athlete outside of their base of support. Side-to-side movements, side plank dips, or there's a lot of other things with like Bosu balls or physio balls that you can do to really focus on that, and that really allowing a swimmer to maintain control of this will show up in their freestyle and backstroke a lot. You see those swimmers, they kind of underwater, they swim like an eel or something. They don't have good frontal plane core stability, okay? We want that swimmer to be rotating and staying kind of in that same cylinder the whole way. So really focusing on that frontal plane stability is huge for improving the speed and hydrodynamic movement of the athlete in the water. Last but not least, rotational core strength. So I would encourage you to focus on anti-rotation exercises first. Allow the athlete to figure out how to generate tension in their core by resisting a rotational movement. That can be something like a Palloff press, or even a chop that focuses on the eccentric slow back to the starting. Being able to generate tension and torque through your core is actually how you develop speed and pull strength in your stroke. And it's going to keep everything connected a lot more. So, just think about loading in all 3 planes when you're thinking about core work with an athlete. If you check all 3 of those, you probably have a pretty good core routine down. So, thanks for watching. You can check us out on Instagram. Our Instagram handle is Streamline Performance PT. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got videos coming up every week, whether that's exercise related or kind of just info like this. So thanks for watching.